one of the biggest reasons why healing businesses get stuck with filling their toolbox and their assets and it's overflowing, and you have so many tools. If somebody came up to you and said, I'm having an anxiety attack, or I'm having chronic pain, or I have this constant looping thoughts, you have so many tools, and you're like, oh, I can give it all to you, right? Because you've been doing this. And here's what I want to say is that, don't get me wrong, when I talk about developing our healing tools, we're always going to do that. I'm always doing that. I'm doing a somatic dance medicine training right now. But if we continue to fill the toolbox and we don't recognize the assets that we own right now, okay, then it's going to be very hard to now utilize those tools. It's kind of like imagine a contractor, or like somebody who builds houses, and they have like 10 different hammers and they don't use any of them. They can't build the house, right? So with your healing business, you need to start to understand what are the assets you own today, not when you're finally good enough or when you get the umpteenth, 10th, certification, which we'll continue to do because it's what keeps us focused and what keeps us in the structure in our spiritual house. But in our business house, we need to maintain, well, how are we going to allow this to continue, and so that to make it happen, not just for in my own personal journey, but for the people who are waiting, they're waiting for your service. Okay, and let me just read what assets mean. Okay, so from a business perspective, assets are classified by how quickly we can be converted to cash, whether they are tangible or intangible. So if you offer a life transformative service, a healing service that is, we know, is multidimensional, it is not tangible, right? And how the business uses them. So again, it's kind of like if we had all those 10 hammers and we don't actually use the hammer, the asset, the tool that we have to say, hey, I have this tool and I can build that for you. Okay, so what happens is, the number one thing that we as healers want to really start to understand is, what do you really do? Here is the mistake we do, is we position ourselves by our credentials, and we have a long list of credentials, right? And sometimes like you have your title and you're like, I don't know which one to put because I have so many, right? MBBS, blah, 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 like all these things, right? Psychotherapist, all these things. And we position ourselves that way, but that is great, but we don't really people will not really understand what we do. So let me give you an example. I have a client who, she's a music therapist. That it's important to understand, okay, yes, I'm a music therapist. And she would position herself as a music therapist, and also what she's not. She's not just one of those, okay, I'm just gonna bang the bowls and, not understand how that's affecting your nervous system and your energetic structure and all that. Okay, that's fine for her to understand. But for her people to understand, you are the one who can help me with my pain. So if you were to work with me, I'd help you understand what is your client's pain. And we go through a deep process of understanding what is that pain, what is that thing that, it's chronic and it's taking over their lives, right? And where do they want to be? Okay, so if you just say, I'm a music therapist, and somebody's, suffering from, debilitating anxiety attacks, they might be like, well, okay, maybe that music therapy might help me, but they won't really know. So you want to make it crystal clear, what is your before, right? And what is your after for your clients. So when we did the work with one of my clients who's a music therapist, which is very important, she understands that, we start to understand, when we went through that process of understanding who are her clients and what are their deepest pains, we start to understand that she works with highly sensitive people who are extroverts and introverts. And we start to understand that these people, when they are out in public, they get resourced by being in social environments. But the problem and their pain is they get really resourced when they're out and about, but when they get home, their nervous system is shot, their energetic field is all fragmented, their physical body is drained of energy. And then what happens is they have to sort of live through, like, I'm lonely, I need to go out and be in the world, but every time I do that, every time I kind of get back into my regular life, I feel completely drained, and it's really hard for me to do my day-to-day, work with my family, get the stuff that needs to be done in the business, have an intimate relationship with my partner. So for her, we start to understand that, yes, okay, music therapy is her technology. Her singing bowls is that magic secret sauce that she has. But nobody's really going to understand that, okay, that person who's that highly sensitive person, and usually the highly sensitive person who is an introvert and extrovert don't necessarily realize that's what they are. So we start to allow our clients to speak to those symptoms, right? Because sometimes your client doesn't even know that they fit into that category. And how do we find that out? We find that out from the clients that you work with, but also your own life, because your clients are a version of you. How many of you healers have brought yourself through a life-altering transformation and realize, oh wow, like I used to suffer from binge eating, I can help somebody else, out of that very, very emotional, very place of dis-ease, right? I know how to bring myself out of that. I have the tools. So that's very, very specific. So healers, one of the things you want to realize is, what do I really do? Yes, I have all the tools. Those are your toolbox. But what do you do? So just like that builder, does he build luxury homes? Does he build tiny houses? Does he just work on condos? Does he just work on like 1920s buildings? Does he work on fancy office buildings? What is it, right? Because if you just say, I'm a builder, like, we don't know, if you really have that expertise. And that's what people are looking for, especially when they've gone through something that is so chronic and it's debilitating and it's basically taking over their relationship, their finances, their health, and everything. And they need to get out of that pain yesterday, and you are that person, right? So you're not going to be the therapist for everyone. You're going to be the therapist for those people. And why? Because you're an expert at bringing them through their life-altering transformation. You know the before and you know the after. You know the very specific outcomes that happen when you get taken through the program.